You're going to want to put your snack down for this one. Let's get straight into the simplest on the list. Okay, this one is seriously messed up. So, the person being tortured would first be tied up and hung upside down, with their feet way up in the air and their head pointing down toward the ground. Why upside down? Because that keeps their brain full of blood. That might sound strange, but it's actually worse because that means they would stay awake for a long time while this awful thing was happening. Once they were tied up, the torturers would take a giant saw, like the kind you use to cut logs, and start sawing between the person's legs. And yes, they really did start right in the middle. Slowly, the saw would move down through the body, cutting through bones, muscles, and everything else. Because the person was upside down, they wouldn't pass out right away. They'd feel everything. Sometimes the torturers would stop partway through, just to keep the person alive longer. It's hard to even imagine the pain. This method was used to scare other people, like, see what happens if you break the rules. Definitely not cool, but it only gets worse from here. Crocodile shears sound like something a cartoon villain would use. But these were real. They were big, scary metal clamps that looked kind of like tongs, but the insides were full of spikes. They would heat the shears in fire until they were glowing red hot. And then, well, this is where it gets awful. The torturers would clamp the shears onto someone's body part, usually something important, you can imagine, and then they'd yank. The spikes would dig in and tear things apart as they pulled. Sometimes this was done super fast. Other times it was slow just to make the pain worse. The hot metal would burn the skin while also ripping things off. And there was almost no way to survive this. You might be wondering why anyone ever did this. Usually it was to punish people for talking back to a king or doing something against the church. So, yeah, scary. Now this one, it looks like it came from a horror movie. The Brazen Bull was a giant metal statue shaped like a real bull, but it was hollow inside, like a big metal oven. What they did was put a person inside the bull and then light a fire under its belly. The metal would get hotter and hotter until the person inside started to roast. But it gets creepier. The bull's mouth had pipes that changed the sounds from inside. So when the person screamed, the pipes would make it sound like a real bull was roaring. The people watching thought that was entertaining. Yikes, they even added things like incense so the smoke from the bull would smell nice while someone was dying inside. If that's not messed up, I don't know what is. Now, this was a cage shaped like a person. It looked kind of like a Halloween decoration, but it was not fun. The person would be locked inside this human-shaped cage. They couldn't move much at all. Then, the torturers would hang the cage up high, usually from a tree or a post so that everyone could see them. If it was really hot out, the sun would burn their skin. If it was cold, they would freeze. Sometimes the torturers would leave them there for days, even letting birds and bugs come eat their skin. And yes, sometimes the birds went for the eyes first. If you needed to go to the bathroom, too bad, you'd have to go right there in the cage. You just sit in your own mess until you died. Horrible. They use this to scare other people and say, this is what happens if you mess with us. Honestly, it's one of the most humiliating and slow torture methods ever. Let's talk about something called the Garrote. Sounds fancy, right? It's not. This was a wooden or metal chair with a tall stick behind the person's neck. The stick had a turning crank on it. When the torturer turned the crank, the stick would press harder and harder into the back of the person's neck. If you're thinking, okay, that doesn't sound too bad, just wait. Some versions had spikes or blades on the stick, so while it pressed in, it would stab into the neck bones or even the skull. It would slowly crush your spine while also hurting your brain. If it wasn't fast, the person would feel everything. It was supposed to be used for quick executions, but sometimes the torturers took their time. You could live for several minutes, feeling your bones crush and your nerves scream before everything went dark. No thanks. Moving. This is one of the most horrible things ever done to people. The person would be tied up, sometimes to a pole, sometimes to a wall. Then, torturers would pour hot wax or oil all over their body, Sometimes it was animal fat, like from pigs. Once the person was covered, they'd be set on fire, like lit with a torch. They would burn alive while still awake. And the reason it's called human candle is because people would use them to light up parties. Seriously, there were parties where rich and powerful people used people on fire as decorations. This wasn't just torture, it was meant to show off how in control someone was. It's honestly one of the sickest things people have ever done. This one is the worst, in my opinion. It's called hanging by hooks, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Huge metal hooks were stabbed through the skin, usually in painful places like the back, ribs, or shoulders. Then, the person would be lifted into the air by the hooks. Nothing else held them up. Just those big pieces of sharp metal stuck inside their body. And no, this wasn't quick. It hurt for hours or days as the hooks slowly tore through their flesh. If you moved even a little bit, the pain would shoot through your whole body. Sometimes they would swing the person back and forth or spin them in circles just to make things worse. Sometimes birds or bugs would come. Other times they'd just leave the person there until they died from blood loss or shock. Even if they survived, they'd be scarred forever. I can't even imagine the kind of pain that would cause. That's why this is number 1. Type down in the comments below if you have any other torture methods you think would make the list. Hit that subscribe button for more, and thanks for watching my first video.